Hello there and welcome. Gosh, today, let's get a little bit up on screen here. Today, we are going to welcome you to an afternoon lecture. We have a few lectures coming up over the next few weeks. Keep in mind, I do my lectures typically Tuesday at 5 p.m. and Thursday at 12 noon. A little bit of change here and there, but for the most part, you can count on those. For whichever lectures are coming up, don't hesitate to check out my website, SelfRecruiter.com. That'll list all the different ones coming up. Today, we're going to do LinkedIn Showplace. That's how do I really take a LinkedIn profile and create a three-dimensional sales brochure, something that really the reader just dives right into and they can't help but come to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I hire this person, work with this person, best business decision I'm going to make today. That's today's lecture. Now, on Thursday, I'll be back here at 12 noon, and that's with my returning to the workforce after a long break or sabbatical. So if in light of pandemic and everything else, we've ended up in an extended time out of work, we have different problems that we also have to solve at the same time. And we're going to cover all of those, including the confidence that is going to be necessary to sell yourself. That will be Thursday at noon. Presentation Guru. While this is not strictly just a job search lecture, this is how to be a presentation guru. And in today's world, wherever we consider ourselves in the midst of this pandemic here, if we haven't already figured out that we have to become a presentation guru in our career to excel, so that's a great lecture, whether you need to be a better presenter in your career, whether you need to be a better presenter in your interviews, or whether you need to present and lead others for your own individual business. All the secrets that you see even on display right here today to help you be a presentation guru. That is next week, 2/18 at 12 noon. Then we have interviewing. This is all the secrets for the pandemic, including the video interviewing, how you set up all of that, and how you really keep yourself on the top of your toes to outmaneuver your competitors. Very, very important. All of those dates are over on my website, SelfRecruiter.com. You can check them out. Any changes or anything that comes up, that'll all be listed there. Broadcasting them to my Facebook page and my YouTube channel right now, so jump in anytime and watch them. They'll also be there over on my YouTube channel where you can watch them at your own time. Creating a LinkedIn Showplace. That's what we need to do. Our career story needs a home, and it's your LinkedIn profile. We're also going to talk about how we're going to use this for our job search. How is it that we can not only build this great sales brochure, a three-dimensional sales brochure that draws them in, but how are you going to get them to read it? Very, very important. A dusty brochure sitting over in the corner on some brochure rack with no attention being paid isn't what we're after. We need your profile to be looked at quite often. Now, today's lecture and the entire series, it's about becoming a self-recruiter. How is it that you can become this one great recruiter that looks after one great candidate, which is you? That means we have to network in a very different way, and that's today's lecture on LinkedIn. And also, we have to keep one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. Those 4, 5, 6 people that would scare you out of applying for that job. Oh, they're going after it. Oh, forget it. Those people. We can beat those people very, very easily with a little bit of thought, planning, strategy. But without that, they're going to beat us every time because they're sparkly, shiny, they draw attention. And so we have to learn how to not be afraid of them, but how to outmaneuver them. Now, your brand really in the digital world, that's what we're talking about today. How do we move your brand off of the resume, out of your mind, and into a three-dimensional space? I want you to think of your LinkedIn, although really we're talking about a number of different digital platforms today. So what we talk about in terms of LinkedIn, you then have to apply to Twitter, Instagram, or whatever other platforms you may be using, all with slightly different thoughts. But LinkedIn's the primary discussion today. So when we think of LinkedIn, that's going to be the Showplace. That is the place where we're looking to close the deal. If they're holding our resume and they're almost, not quite sure, that's where the LinkedIn profile comes in, where they look over at your LinkedIn profile, and we're going to cover how easily they get there from your resume when it's done properly, suddenly onto this all-encompassing three-dimensional sales brochure about you that has more detail, much more detail in my view. Keep in mind, everything I'm teaching you today is my opinion. You should take it with a grain of salt. You should also understand where those opinions come from and what all the background is and everything else, which we'll tell you coming up. Let's talk about why social media matters, especially in light of all that's gone on recently. There's a lot of concern over social media, but really we have to think about how we can utilize social media and a lot of things that happen there to help our career story, to help us get to a new level. I mean, obviously, I don't have to read everything that's on screen here. You can read it here. Most important probably is the second from the bottom. The second from the bottom is how you stay on top of people's minds with a properly put together social media campaign. Now, that's a separate lecture than I have from today, but it's right over on my YouTube channel, so you can go look over there. You know, the social media marketing lecture itself, it's about doing about 2 hours of homework that you can then execute in about 2 minutes per day. 2 minutes per day on top of your use of your LinkedIn profile is how you effectively stay on the top of people's minds, even though you may seem to not really have direct contact with them. They're thinking about you. They're always right there. Small changes change perception. That's another reason why social media matters. Well, here's some of my social media. And right away, you're going to see that it has nothing to do, or at least this part of it, which is off my Instagram, has nothing to do with what I do professionally. Yes, I have quite a lot of social media that talks about what I do professionally, but you also have to tell them who you are. Because let's be clear, the two reasons you get hired, this is assuming you're capable, qualified, can do this potential job. The two reasons you get hired, chemistry, number one, above all other things in this world. Number two, confidence in you above all other things in this world than chemistry. And that's assuming you're capable, qualified. You have to be those things too, but we also have to know who you are, what drives you, what do you do in your non-work life. What you're seeing up on screen is a lot of my Instagram. I use my Instagram to tell the other side of just who is John? What does he do? What does he do besides what I see on screen here? Well, you go to my Instagram, which is a drop-down menu right from my website. And you'll see all these pictures of me hiking up the Hudson Valley or climbing Half Dome out in Yosemite, or these ones that are up here now is a year ago, August, where I almost perished in the desert, out in the California desert at 108 degrees on a trail with strong recommendations not to do it in August. But, it was the only day I was there, and it was a dream trip that I was after. But no matter how much I planned, and this is something we all have to think about in job search, no matter how much I planned, I made a wrong turn. I got distracted momentarily, added 2 extra miles until my heart was racing out of control for the last hour, about to overheat. Thought I might not make it back pretty seriously, but thank goodness I did make it back. Happy for that. Small changes. Boy, that was a small change, getting back to that car and being able to turn the air on and get more water and cool down. Small changes change perception when we think about our career story. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of direction, lots to think about. Your job is not to let someone else think for yourself. Absorb all of this information that I'll give you, see which of it aligns properly with your ideals and which is going to help you, and then implement what will help you. Information is the new currency. The more information that you have access to, the more likely you are to be able to leverage it to your benefit. So really, this is how I'm going to teach you today how to extract information from LinkedIn that will make your job search easier. Also, if you think about the other lecture, the career evolution, that's the social media marketing lecture. That's kind of really the part 2 to this lecture, right over on my YouTube channel. That one is really about how you seed information to LinkedIn so people can find you. Well, today we're going to talk about the extraction piece. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru. Told you you need to know everyone's background that's teaching you, so you know how to parse and value and use that information that's being given to you. 7 or 8 years in outside recruitment. That's a traditional headhunter on a desk, having to go into the competitor company, lure them out. It's really very similar to a glorified dating guru, millionaire matchmaker. That would be another route maybe I should have gone. So 7 or 8 years as the recruiter. Then I was the national trainer. So we had a 100 office recruiting system. And as each office would hire potential recruiters, they come into my 90-day program to teach them how hiring really works, which is not really how most people think it works. Otherwise, we really wouldn't need a lecture series like this one. Then, of course, ended up being VP over all 100 offices before moving out for the last 10 plus years doing what I do now. And that's working directly with clients, helping them reinvent their resumes and their career story and reinvent their LinkedIn profiles, helping coach them through very intricate job search challenges that they may have. And of course, giving lectures for the New York Public Library, for the New York State Department of Labor, multiple locations, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, Harvard Business School Club of New York City, many, many others as well. That's where the information comes from. Now, there's another piece of my background that you don't know about probably, and that is before all of that I just described, I also ran a pre-press service bureau, which means I really do understand line and type and spacing and how that affects communications. And that's very important, not only for your resume, but also for today's subject, your LinkedIn profile. We are this product. We're a product, and we have to be marketed. We have to consider how people are going to react to us. Look at the visual here. It is not okay to be just cookie cutter interchangeable. Oh, you know what? I'll just be perfect. I'll just be perfect. They'll see me. They'll just grab me right off the shelf. You know what? If you're interchangeable cookie cutter perfect, I can pay you less. Oh, you don't want less? You don't want less? Well, someone else is taking less. You'll take less. Someone in this line is taking less. And that's what I'm going to get if you're just that. You not only have to be capable, qualified, cookie cutter, interchangeable, but somehow be special, be different. And that's how you get a better offer. That's how you get more responsibility. And that's how you outmaneuver your competitors that may seem perfect. This is going to require a paradigm shift in the way we have told our story. You have probably told your career story for so long. Let me get a little bit of a sip of coffee here. You've told it so long in a certain way, most of us really can't, we don't have the agility to be able to shift and tell that story in a still truthful but different way. And we're going to have to kind of go through all that because it's our job to teach them how to select us as the very best individual. It's not their job to pick the best person. It's our job to teach them that we're the best person. Now, you heard me start out by saying they may be holding the resume, but they're almost convinced, not convinced, almost convinced, not quite sure. Top of the resume, I want to share this piece with you. Your contact line should be a single line, your contact information. And what do I recommend on the resume? Even though it's a LinkedIn lecture, we start with your LinkedIn URL. That's on the left side. Then we follow it by the city and state. Don't need your 123 any street because don't hire you because of those things. Email address becomes the next item in the list. And finally, your cell phone number. Please notice it says cell phone number. I really don't care if you can't get cell service in your house. It is your cell phone that goes on that, not multiple phones and not your home phone. Cell phone number, very important. Now, what we're after here is if they are holding it and convinced, easiest thing to get to, because we tend to think left to right, easiest thing to get to is on the far right. There it is right there. There's my cell phone. Pick up the phone and call me. Pick up the phone and call me. Not quite convinced. The second easiest thing to get to, far left, is then the LinkedIn profile. Click on that to get to the three-dimensional sales brochure, where I'm sure will convince you the rest of the way that really I am the best thing since sliced bread. That's your job. So what's your story? That's an interesting word, isn't it? Story. Story is required to create interest. Now, sometimes we think of story as being something that's not true. This has to be absolutely letter true. Now, I grew up Catholic, which means I know a lot about negotiating sin. There is no sin of omission here. There's only sin of commission here. Every single thing on that resume or on that LinkedIn profile must be absolutely letter true. But you don't have to put everything on the resume or on the LinkedIn profile. You can leave out any part that you'd like to leave out about that story. Yes, be capable and qualified, as you see here, but that's not the decider. You know what? I wouldn't hire anyone that wasn't capable or qualified. That's not why I hire you. I hire you because why are you interesting? What makes you tick? And every single one that I'm drawn to is automatically going to be capable and qualified, or they never would have made this list in the first place. That is not the deciding factor. That's why it's so important for you to begin to take control of the discussion. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? And it has to be more than simply just your profession. You're a three-dimensional, real human being. That's what sells. Now, we're going to have to do some work on our personal branding. That covers everything. That's our resume, our cover letters, everything else involved, of course, LinkedIn profile. Even though this is the LinkedIn lecture, we do need to talk a little bit about resume, because your resume and your LinkedIn profile are two very specialized marketing tools, and they're related. In my view, they need to be polar opposites of each other. Resume to me is about catching or piquing that interest. Tends to be the first time they may catch notice of you. In my view, that is a single sheet of paper in all cases. There's never an exception. Polar opposite to that concept is how do you take that single sheet of paper and now expand it into a three-dimensional sales brochure, adding back not the dull stuff, but all the missing, interesting, detailed content that should have been there. Where's the rest of your story that makes you really, really interesting and will drive them to the conclusion that, my gosh, you're the best? That's a very different outcome. Another way to think of it is really the resume being the essence and the value of your career on a single page. And again, like I've said before, the LinkedIn profile becoming this three-dimensional sales brochure. Wow, that's the one I have to hire. That's the one I have to go out after. That's going to be the best business decision I make today. It's about influence. That's your job. Now, here's my connections on LinkedIn. As of today, I have 11,839. 3 levels out, that is 21 plus million people in the 3-level network. In case you don't really understand what that means when I search LinkedIn, I can see every stitch of information on those 21 plus million people. How could I use that information to make my job search easier, to make my approach to these organizations easier? LinkedIn, of course, de facto social networking website for our work life, very much like Facebook. A little bit different, but really they're identical. They both have profiles, they both have groups, they both have lots of shared content. And below every piece of shared content is like, comment, share, message. Identical. Probably suing the pants off each other behind the scenes. Don't know what LinkedIn's for, or don't know what Facebook is for. LinkedIn, that's where we center our business story. Now, LinkedIn is a few other things as well. Business person, of course, will think of LinkedIn in all these ways that you see here, but you have to think of LinkedIn all these ways that you see here. LinkedIn, this is your tool. This is your avenue to promote your brand. You have a career brand, in case we missed that part, that you have to promote forevermore using the communications, research, marketing, and advertising aspects of LinkedIn. That becomes a game changer. Now, a little bit of a view of the back end of LinkedIn. It's a 3-level network that used to talk endlessly about this, including giving you those nice little tiered numbers. Now they rarely talk about it. It's a 3-level network, so no matter what you do to your settings, happy guy down in the corner connected to another happy person, that's my connection. But no matter what they do to their settings, every one of their connections behind them come right into John's pool. They're not my connections, by the way, but they're right in my pool. And no matter what they do to their settings, every single one behind their connections comes right into John's pool. It's a 3-level network that belongs to you forever, if we begin to think about what we might be able to do with it. Now, networking, we know that's interacting with other folks, exchanging information, those kinds of things. Most of us are not very good at it because usually we get to the networking part of what we have to do. Oh, I have to network. Oh, I have to go network. Ooh. And we usually arrive there like bleeding out emotion, bleeding out energy. And we're like, hi, I'm here to sell myself. Here's my car. Okay. Yes, I know we're there to sell ourselves a little bit. But really, traditional networking doesn't work because we misunderstand it. You are there, be it in conversation, be it a video setup, be it in person, although not very likely these days. But That networking is about you being the most interested person on the conversation, on the video conference, or in that personal location. Be the most interested. Oh my gosh, what brought you here today? Oh, how'd you get into that? Oh, that's so interesting. Now, what's the company like over there? Out of curiosity, where'd you work before that? 2, 3, 4, 5 innocuous questions. I can lure them up onto their soapbox, and then I have to, not another word comes out until they run out of oxygen. They're unloading information on me that could be very valuable to me. Let them speak. That's why traditional networking doesn't work. Most people don't understand it. Now, the usual customer expected, that fouls us up as well, because we think, well, that's not the right way. You need to not let someone else think for yourself. Simply getting in the room or getting in a networking event, be it virtual or whatever it might be these days, and just exchanging your card doesn't really work for most folks, because they're only thinking about themselves and they're not thinking strategically. It's a rut that we get stuck in, essentially, that leaves us in a pretty unhappy place. I want to change that dramatically, and we're going to use LinkedIn to change it, because small little changes change everything. We're going to simply ignore the so-called rules and do it a different way. There's a lot of things that we can do that are more unusual, unconventional. I can't do that, can I? Well, you have my permission if you need it, whatever it might be. Let's think about how we can cross boundaries without upsetting people and engage them in a very interesting way. That's the unconventional and creative interpretation. From that, you're going to have these light bulb moments, these moments of clarity that just come to life. As you see, there's another way than sitting home, hitting that darn button over and over. And that darn button almost never says apply. It almost always says submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive, like a Friday night waiting for the phone to ring. It's going to ring. It's going to ring. But when it does, it's going to be a telemarketer. So the first real question, as I begin to think strategically about how to use LinkedIn, is, well, a lot going on here, John. Whom should I network with? Everyone. If I could connect to everybody on this planet, I would. I have real criteria, by the way, in people I connect with. You have to be a living, breathing human being on planet Earth, and 1 out of 500 to 1 out of 1,000 seem to somehow miss that basic test. I think you're a company pretending to be a person. You're just going to spam me. 1 out of 500, 1 out of 1,000. I don't care if you're in India, Russia, or China. I don't care if you're in janitorial services. None of that matters, because as a connection, it is never about you. It's about those 2 or 3 layers of network behind you that I get to own forever. And you have no idea who someone's sibling is, or next door neighbor is, or parent is, or child is, or who they have in their social circle. All of these people have tremendous value once you go to a 3-level network. So honestly, everyone becomes a good connection. Bad connections, when you have 90 connections. You know what's a great connection? When you have 500 plus connections and you're seen as a mover and shaker, finger on the pulse. Also teach you how to get to 501 connections, which is required to be labeled 500 plus. So think about all the places when we do get our shots and we do go back to the normal world, all the places we might congregate. And those are all opportunities anywhere we might be to network. Maybe even back in line at the movies someday, or maybe inside of a diner someday, for a little while for me. We have to think about all these things and link with as many people as possible. That's how we begin to really control things. Now, I'm going to show you 2 techniques before we show you how to maximize your profiles as a selling brochure. These are only 2 techniques that scratch the surface. These are techniques I used every day as a recruiter, and they're techniques you can use every day as a job seeker and your own self-recruiter. So the first one is a 1 back, 1 forward. Now, this is how you create a statistically perfect list of 30 organizations that would hire you today if they had an opening. That's the only unknown, by the way, is do they actually have an opening? If you put together and do this work, you'll create this list where every one of those companies, if they have an opening, is dying to hire you. That creates a very different outcome. Those are the correct companies that you need to go after. So how do we create this list? Well, I'm going to go into LinkedIn And I'm going to search for someone just like me in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form. Some aspect of myself. I'm going to dig in the search results. And I'm going to collect all these people together like you see on screen here. And then I'm going to look at, well, I'm really looking for people that had the same background as me in some way, shape, or form, but made one job move forward. By default, they'll have one back, one forward. This is where it comes from. So let's think about someone that was a Coca-Cola quality manager until yesterday, and suddenly they're looking for something new. Well, I could go in, even on the free version of LinkedIn, because it's the only version I use. I can go into LinkedIn, I can do the search, I can find people that used to be, that's a toggle choice, Coca-Cola quality managers. And then I can collect together in the search results the people that landed a new job. And as I begin to look around at this list, the first thing you'll experience is heartbreak, because you're going to see 7-Up, Pepsi Cola, RC Cola. John, I could have written that list myself. Yes, that part of the list you should have written yourself right off the top of your head. And then you're going to see all these food and beverage companies you've never heard of, and there's like a million of them. Every one of them statistically perfect to hire you. They hired your duplicate. Very, very easy. One back, one forward. Another technique to teach you is a 1, 2, 3 forward technique. I have an actual example to show you here because it's a little more complex, a little harder to wrap our heads around. Here, what we're after is if you'd like to reinvent yourself, that could be at the start of your career and you'd like to launch the career and I don't know where I want to go or what I want to do. Or it could be your mid-career, like the Coca-Cola quality manager. You wake up and you go, I'm so done selling sugary sodas. But now what? It's all I've done. I have to totally reinvent. Works for both, and I'll walk you through how it does. So let's show you the real example. Real example here is we're trying to find pathways. You know, reinventing the wheel is not a great use of your time. It's already been invented. So if I can simply find someone that has what I want, work in reverse to understand the steps, I can then understand what I should maybe do next. So the example here is I had a client, or who became a client, call me up from Atlanta and said, I think I need your help. I think I don't have a career. I'm like, oh, that sounds a little harsh. Send me your stuff. Let's take a look. You know what? 3, 4 years out of school, done a little of this, a little of that. Now managing a health club. Nothing wrong with managing a health club, by the way. Doesn't want to manage a health club. I don't know how to find a career. I'm like, I have an idea. Why don't we do this brainstorming technique and see if we can find what might excite you? So I said, really, you're just in the workforce? No. I've been working 3 years, 4 years. Okay, well, welcome. There's nothing here. I said, I see your asset really as your education. Let's go back to your core asset. Let's go find other people with the same asset and what did they do with it? And let's go discover something that might be of interest to you. So as you can see on screen here, my client went to Clark Atlanta University. All these folks went to Clark Atlanta University. My client studied mass media, and through keyword search, all of these folks had studied mass media. And through the magic of search at the time that I did it originally, these were all 3, 4, 5 years out of school. They had the same time frame, the same asset. What did they do with it? So I said, well, let's have a look around. Doesn't matter where they're located. What titles do you like? Oh, events. I'd like to work in events. That looks pretty good to me. I'd like to work in events for Warner Brothers. Oh, that looks pretty good too. I'd love to be something where I could be a membership director. Oh, recruiter, like to help someone. So we'll come back for that one. Membership director, Trish, how'd she do it? What do you think her first job was? Membership associate. What do you think her second job was? Membership manager. And voila, 3 steps in, she's membership director. And here's my client over on the right, Tahita, had no idea what she was looking for at the time. Suddenly she knows what she's going after. And there's lots of nonprofits and foundations around Atlanta. I said, great, but I don't know what role. It's member services. I don't know what that does. I don't either. But apparently they're going to love your background. Let's go sell it. And suddenly she finds herself on the first step of her 3-step toward her career goal, member services at the Georgia Pharmacy Association. Of course, been telling this one for a while. I have to update it. She moved up to manager of member services and database, and finally up to director of membership operations. Her entire career path down a direction she had not heard of before our discussion. You know, we have to think about this perception. We have to think about how we're going to present ourselves. That means we have to have some idea of what we want them to think about this product. How are we going to utilize the small changes in storytelling to somehow satisfy both of these things I talked about earlier? I have to be cookie cutter interchangeable, but also somehow special and different, or I get less money, not more money. And no matter how awful this phrase may seem, perception is reality. This does not mean to misrepresent, but it is not okay to be fantastic at what you do all alone in a dark room where no one can observe it. We have to get out there and toot our own horn. Let me show you a few shares that I put up there. These all begin to affect perception. I did a group event and they shared a shot from that, so I posted it. Suddenly I'm running out to do one of my lectures pre-pandemic and shared a picture and a link for that. Last year before, I was doing my online boot camp, about to go full-time pretty soon on my website. And suddenly someone captured this picture mid lecture. And my father was a Catholic deacon, so I saw him in that pose all the time. I'm sure he would have loved it. Passed away now. Here I am up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. Of course, I didn't make it into the shot, but my coffee and my book made it into the shot. How are you going to change reality simply by sharing different things about your background? These could be articles. These could be things you put together. These could be things you collect. Some people are too new to their profession to be the expert, but you can become the aggregator that reads it all, absorbs it all, shares it all. Even in this case, I'm piggybacking, resharing the radio host show's content, which included some of my content. Also, don't be afraid to understand and think about your brand and occasionally break your brand. Now, I exercise a lot of branding control, and full disclosure, my other half is a creative director, so I get lots of help there. But I can't post the same darn picture all the time. And so I was running out the door to one of my lectures. I needed a new shot. Someone was sitting in the front row of one of my lectures. And what's actually happening here is I'm showing my absolutely ridiculously long email signature. And it's toward the end of the lecture. And I'm caffeinated and there's a lot of adrenaline. And I'm embarrassed and suddenly ridiculous 1,500 views. I hate this picture. I look at it and I go, oh, where's my hair? Why's my nose so big? All those things that we don't like. Suddenly 1,500 views. Yes, don't be afraid to be a real human being on occasion, because that also sells well. Now, success in how you're going to end up with the right profile, it's all determined by, are you going to do the right preparation? You have to brand your career. Now, today we're going to talk mostly about LinkedIn, but if you'd like to be employed, I'm a big believer that you need to also be on Twitter. Big believer. I don't think you need to live on Twitter. You could use it the way I use Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but it's a one-way vehicle. I send my content to Twitter from my LinkedIn. When I update these things on LinkedIn, and you can kind of get the branding effect of different things over time, as you see here, all these things I share are allowed to seamlessly flow out to Twitter. That's because a lot of companies have stopped posting jobs because they've learned to think like a detective. I can go to Twitter. You give me any industry, any position, any level, doesn't really matter. Give me a few minutes to think about it. I can come up with 4, 5, or 6 words. Not to find someone capable or qualified. It's like cat hair in my mouth. What I'm looking for is the best of the best of the best. 4, 5, 6 words. All you have to do is imagine, well, the very best people. What conferences would they be going to? What books would they be reading and talking about? It's a short list if they're really the best. Then everything else in our background, things that we might have considered for the resume, all the different things that we discover about ourselves, has to be filtered through a lens. That lens is wise. Why is it going to be the right business decision if they're going to hire me? So does this content about me elevate that question? Does it help them see it with clarity? Or is it just filler and really should go away? It's a little more the minutia that has to disappear. That means, yeah, we're going to center our story as much as possible on these things because somehow we had to have affected performance. There was no reason to keep us on staff. It has to be one of those things. So let's think about LinkedIn and how we're going to take our profile itself and turn it into this three-dimensional sales brochure. Best place to start is what do you look like when you look at others? Or what do they see when they look at you? Now, here is a mechanism that LinkedIn uses to try to build desire for paid subscription. If you would like a paid subscription, you should get one. If you would like not to have one, you should not get one. What they'll let you do is see the last 5 people or the last 5 times someone has looked at you for free. And so that can be useful if we understand how to use it. Now, we could be at the bottom here. I don't know why we would even look there. That's 2 people that really don't understand LinkedIn. There's really no purpose to privacy on LinkedIn. This is your public shingle of your profession out for the world to read. It's your cultivated, curated garden of your story. Why would that ever be private? I don't really know. It doesn't make sense. If there's somebody watching today that is a founder or an owner, I sure hope you're not looking for a new job, because we don't hire founders and owners. You know why? Because we can't tell them what to do. They don't follow our direction. They have their own darn ideas. The way you get yourself out of that, if you've been a founder and owner, is just change the darn title to principal. It has all of the same benefit, none of the negative baggage. Deborah here, my gosh, now I can see textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. We're finally getting a direction. Fantastic. I love it. Now, I wonder what Deborah does within those. And I wonder how good her delivery is at whatever it is she does. She does look engaging, and I do get good energy. Oh, but we're still missing some opportunity. Brad here up at the top, corporate affairs, communications, global reputation management, government relations, crisis comms. Look, I can contact that guy, and he looks the part. Full disclosure, of course, one of my clients. It's very important you look the part. You know, I look like this because I'm in front of the camera. If you saw me on a normal day, I'm in jeans, t-shirt, 5-finger shoes, who knows what. But you know what? That's not someone you would take advice from if I stepped in front of the camera. You have to show the product that you are. Your profiles are the world at your window. You know, if you were in retail, your job, if you were in retail, is to get people into the store. Pretty tough these days for pandemic and Amazon, my gosh. But your job is to get them in the store. What are you going to put in the window? Your profile is the window. How are you going to create the right first impression? How are you going to have the right professionalism? How are you going to outmaneuver your competitors? All of these things, maybe even a little tagline about ourselves, all different things that we have to consider and think about. All of this elevates your brand. Now, most people don't use a banner image. Very important to use a banner image if you can. You do not have to be in the banner. I'm in the banner because I do a lot of these talks. Very easy to get pictures like this for myself. But maybe it's more of an abstract picture or something related. It could even be your dirty desk, a close-up. Yes, I've actually used the dirty desk shot for some of my clients, and it works very, very effectively. Whatever it is, it has to balance with your profile shot. So one does not outmaneuver the other. They have to work in synergy. Profile shot, let's just be clear. I strongly, if you'd like to get hired, strongly recommend we do not put type over top of our picture. As an independent expert, I don't work for somebody else. It works very well for me. The moment I go to compete to try to land a job in-house somewhere, I'm sure I could compete pretty well. But the moment I leave that room, they're going to go, I don't know. John's head's a little big. I don't know if we can fit in the room. Ego creates a barrier. Don't do it if you'd like to be hired. And of course, we want to get to a place of being 500 plus connections. Very, very important. A little bit of a message about you built in right under your name. What do I say in my headline? This headline to me is almost like the 200-character resume. What could I tell them? Not my current or last employer and title. Really? That's the most impressive thing you could say? I doubt it. What do I say? Author and career coach, resume and LinkedIn and career branding guru, featured speaker at the New York Public Library, Department of Labor, CUNY, and many others. Quoted and seen in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, Essence Magazine. Oh my gosh, you can contact that guy. Would you like to be contacted? Put your email address in the headline. Yes, you're going to get spam. You're going to let spam prevent you from getting to your destiny? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Of course, you can click the blue pencils, you can go in, you can do live edits. You have to try and reposition and find out what's going to be best. Now, as you move down the profile, it's the about or summary section. This is a special opportunity because how we generally value you, you're not going to like this part, is employer title, employer title, employer title, usually 2 or 3 for the time, relevance, of skills, education, decision about you, right or wrong, based on how I feel about those companies, right or wrong, based on what I believe you might have done without really reading in those position titles that you have. That's a lot of rolling of the dice. Why don't you simply short circuit that valuation process by collecting together some of the best parts of all of your background, no matter when they happened, all together in the summary, and tell still the true story in a slightly different way. I start out with a quote. I often start out with a quote with some of my clients because when I'm working with a client, we do a 90-minute deep dive interview to discover the story. And most clients will say something magical. I'm like, oh, I heard it. I wrote it down. Yeah, I'm a master at capturing. Because people will tell you, even though they won't say it themselves, they don't have the courage to put it together. They'll just organically tell you exactly how to present them. I'll put this quote up here, put quotes around it. Looks very nice. One thing you notice, of course, is the white space. White space is incredibly important. I could have put all these media hits in it much more succinctly, but then what? It would have taken an extra second, 2 or 3. There is no extra second, 2 or 3. Now they can glance down the list, it's in the brain. Glance down the wrist, in the brain. Really that simple. Now the summary section or about section is so large, 2,000 characters of space. It's really 3 screens long the way I use it. I then tell them I'm a featured speaker at the Public Library, at the Department of Labor. I then put in 8 more organizations that I speak at. But you see how I did it cleverly. I just can't put a block of 8. That becomes a paragraph. Ooh, paragraph. Ooh, I don't want to read. Had to say it week after week when I was doing live lectures at the New York Public Library. Nobody wants to read. And that's the end of that sentence. Portends some pretty awful things for our future. But my gosh, if you understand they don't want to read, then do you see any sentence structure here? There's no sentence structure on a resume that I create for a client. There's virtually no sentence structure unless I stick a quote in on the LinkedIn profile I create for a client. People won't read. You have to adjust your style. You have to make it so it's absorbable. As you go down the page, you get to the SelfRecruiter part or the about section, the SelfRecruiter piece, and we put in a few more titles that we talk about. Clever way to get some more keywording in there. And then I roll the dice on an entire paragraph out of my book, put quotes around it. Oh my gosh, am I going to lose them? I don't think so. Of course, I tell them about my full service resume and LinkedIn packages, all that stuff. And then I begin to attach visual elements. Your about section, your individual jobs, they can all take visual elements. Have you ever picked up a brochure in one of those brochure racks when you're out traveling? They all have pictures for a reason. You have to have pictures, video, something. So we're going to have to go back and probably collect together every single picture that ever touched our work life and then cherry pick just a handful of them to convey a certain quality, maybe overlay a little bit of type in PowerPoint or Keynote. Pretty easy, so it looks professional, and begin to share these things that affect perception. Now, if you are properly sharing, this white box appears on your profile. If you are not properly sharing, it does not appear on your profile. There is no way to turn it on or off other than to begin to share. The second after you share, boom, this white box shows up. Haven't shared in months and months, the white box disappears. This is also a way for them to know, are you living and breathing your profession? By the way, you may go, but I'm not working. Okay. Passion, living and breathing your profession, does not require payment. There's no payment for John today. I certainly have passion. So one does not require the other. I want to suddenly be looking over your shoulder, what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, and suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I think they're available. That's the excitement of a great candidate that's living and breathing their profession. Down to the individual job listings, you can take a look at my profile yourself and spend some time on it. Really absorb the story, borrow technique, change the story to make sense for yours and do your LinkedIn profile. What you need to absorb from here is the way I have parsed out groups of information for the storytelling. Here's a more traditional set. So I just basically break it all down. You realize there's no sentence structure. It completely communicates. Once I have the story blocks parsed out and I group them for simplification, then what I'm going to do is go back and add just a tiny bit of all capitalization. A little bit of all cap, my gosh, they're going to tend to read a lot more. No all cap, probably not going to read very much. So think about how even on the 2-line bullets, how that affects things. Now, down at the bottom here, we have a keyword block. So when I look down at the keyword block here, now let's be clear. Well, let's just go back and see if we can give you that visual. It went by too quickly. Most people do not need a keyword block. Let's see if we can get back there. Oh, there we go. Down at the bottom there, keyword block. Most people don't need one. If you need one, this is how you do it. I recommend you do not put it in the summary or the about section, because that's not really, a keyword block is for the machine. It's not really for people. Stick it anywhere else in the profile, skip a few spaces just like you saw here, and then suddenly at the very, very bottom, keywords, colon, run them all together. Now, I gave you a lot of time to read the keyword block. I don't know if you did. I don't know if you see Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins. Never quite know how they're going to search him. Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street Y. All these things have absolutely nothing to do with. Why are they here? Because I think like a detective. Those are all things you could search to find someone like John, but you won't find John. But so if you need to come up when certain companies are searched or certain people, gosh, you could stick those names, those things into a keyword block. Some clever, clever ways to have a tremendous effect in you being in search results when people are looking for someone like you, so you don't get left behind. If you need that keyword block, that's how you do it. Don't use it if you don't need it. This is a trial and error. I have to try it. I have to see what it looks like. I have to go back and open it up. I have to edit it again. That's how you get to the right thing. And then, of course, as much as possible, even down in individual jobs, let's go ahead and put in what we need as far as different things that might be there visually. I want to show you a little bit of the story from earlier. Here I am, VP over the 100 office recruiting system. And we did manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, chemical, energy. Clever way to get more keywords. But think about this. If you were in any one of these industries and you needed someone to help you reinvent your resume or reinvent your LinkedIn profile or coach you through the challenges within your industry, guess who would come right up in the search results based on how I told this story? If there's a way for you to consider how to utilize this type of technique in your telling, that's why I'm giving you this information. Let's also be clear that this would be a terrible technique for the resume. In my view, you have a single sheet of paper. You don't have a lot of real estate. This is not the place. But over on LinkedIn, we're not limited with the same kind of limits on the real estate. We have a lot of place that we can use text. Now, next thing I'd like to show you, this is a little bit earlier. Suddenly I am listing out all my clients. Now, this could get you in trouble. Trade secret agreements, non-disclosures, you have to be very, very careful. I had the right to share every single client that I worked with. I shared every single client that I worked with. And you can imagine, again, from the storytelling technique, if you worked at any one of these organizations and you needed someone to help you reinvent your resume, reinvent your LinkedIn profile, coach you through very tricky things going on within your industry, guess who would come right up based on how I told that story? Again, if there's a way for you to utilize this, it will help you. That's what I'm teaching you. Look what's just below that. Invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and lion. Would you like endless new connections forever? Why don't you go to my profile? You can copy this line right out. You don't even have to retype it, paste it anywhere in your profile. This is how you're going to get endless new connections forever. And we're going to show you how that works coming up. This is how you get to 500 plus connections as well. Publications module. Of course, I have my book in there. A few different articles. I got featured in Essence magazine. Thought I was getting punked here in Essence magazine. Like, who, me? And suddenly I was, or my book was. But even if you don't have those things, anybody could write 3, 4, 5 articles. Are you an expert at what you do? Could you write 3, 4, 5, page and a half, because no one wants to read, page and a half article that somehow surrounds what you do professionally? Kind of like if I came to you and said, hey, could you talk to my kid? You know, they kind of like to come down the same career path you're on. Could you give them some pearls of wisdom? That's the right, wise mentoring tone that we're after. You could put those 3, 4, 5 articles on a free blog. There's a million of those, and link it up here and use the publication module. Do you volunteer? Now, when I do this live, I'll go, volunteer, anybody volunteer? And someone will go, oh, I volunteer. I'm like, oh. I dismiss it right away. You know why? Because I realize it's volunteer work. We have a perception that volunteer isn't real. By the way, I am volunteering here today. I guarantee you this is real. So for myself nor my clients, I don't use the volunteer module. I use the organizations module. Very, very different. It has all of the same benefit, none of the dismissive baggage that comes with it. Oh, that's how you align yourself. That's how you give back. So whatever it might be, paid or unpaid, goes into the organizations module in my view. You do see a lot of dates in the way I'm using this, but this field does not require dates. Dates are in here because I'm a public speaker. Put dates in if you'd like, leave them out if you would not like. By the way, if you did something for Habitat for Humanity back in 2004, I don't care. Everybody wants to talk about that. I would definitely have a Habitat for Humanity in here if I did it. I'd leave the dates off, and when and be a little footnote on my resume too, and they go, oh, I see a Habitat for Humanity. Oh my gosh, that was back in 2004. I just jump right into the story. All of the benefit, none of the baggage. By the way, this is the same technique that you see here circled here with the NYU Wasserman Center. Learn how to share information that will suddenly help you. And I was doing a roundtable discussion where we're going to have a moderator, then we're going to have Jessica, and we're going to have John Ladinsky, and I'm like, I'm game, let's do it. And I'm doing my research beforehand, and suddenly I got so jealous. Oh my gosh, John Ladinsky had so many followers. I'm jealous. But I'm thinking, well, I'm not really thinking, how do I get more followers than John Ladinsky? I'm thinking, how do I get John Ladinsky's followers? I already have my followers. Why don't I get somebody else's followers? So this is how sharing accolades, praise for somebody else, lets the moonlight come right back on you. Anytime someone searches Jessica or John or Vincent or any of the people here or NYU, guess who also comes right up in those search results based on how I told the story. Don't be afraid to share the credit and understand how the benefit comes back to you. 50 words or phrases, keyword skill endorsement module. Your goal here is to fill all 50 spots. You are not an expert at 50 items, but I guarantee you're an expert at some of them. Here's what is required from my view to be on this list. I have touched, if this was a table, and I've touched the table, table is on the list. I've touched it. I have exposure to it. That's it. Yes, that's a very low threshold. You will not have 50 things you're an expert in, but everything you have touched, even if it was just one time, goes on the list. Understand behind the scenes, companies can check this thing off like a recipe list. I want someone that's done this, has exposure to this. Don't leave out part of your story just because, oh, well, that's not my wheelhouse. I don't want to do that again. I don't blame you. But they may want you to do something different, but they need someone that's done that in the past. Don't leave out your story. Of course, everything gets collected at the bottom of your LinkedIn in a little bit different way. Whatever we put together up top, they reassemble it at the bottom. You may even begin to think, oh, I'm redundant. There's too much information. Perfect. You know why? Because your information needs to go everywhere possible within the profile that it might belong. Because you're not creating one profile that will be used all the same way. Different people all use it differently. I don't want to look at the summary. I just want to look at your jobs. No, I don't want to look at your jobs. Just tell me about yourself. You have to put all of your story in all of the places it may belong. Think about how you're going to shift a little bit here. Of course, as far as these end modules down below at the bottom, you can add as much detail in, and that's all keyword searchable. So don't be shy. And yet it still simplifies it so the visitor doesn't get overwhelmed. Now, 4, 5, or 6 full written recommendations would be awfully nice. You know how you get those things? By giving them. You need to give some to get them. I think I have 52, 53, 54 of them up here. Not a single edit. Now, if you were to read some of mine, and please do, they're over on my LinkedIn profile, your head will probably explode because you're going to see all sorts of typos, grammar out of control. Oh my gosh, didn't John see this? Of course I did. That's why those things work. I learned that on a desk as a recruiter. Those magical, mythical 3 references? Let me be really clear. Half of the companies I ever worked with would never check a reference under any circumstance whatsoever. It's a scam. Now, let's be clear. Degree verification, not a scam. Date of employment, not a scam. The rest of it, I'm sorry, you cherry pick these 3 people. If they don't say something good about you, you don't even deserve this job. So yeah, about half the companies never even bothered with that nonsense, and the other half would just do the dog and pony show, check off the boxes. And for the half that would check references, I would generally get the call, offer time. It's usually coming from HR, and they say, "Oh, John, we'd like to consider moving so-and-so toward an offer. Can we get their references to get the reference calls out?" And I go, "Oh, absolutely, get them right over to you." Here's what I would employ without hanky-panky. I would employ selective hearing. What I would choose to hear instead was, "Do you think you could get the completed references over to us by this afternoon? Maybe we can get an offer up at the end of the day." Oh, that sounds much better. I cannot let them take a week and a half, whatever it may be, to track down these references, phone calls and tag, and I will pull them out of a meeting on their cell phone if necessary. This is life and death for my clients. And so think about what you're going to do in situations to change the equation. Those ones that made the difference, let's tell you how this really works in the end. I was calling one of my client managers and hadn't spoken to this person in a while, but I should check in. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, just want to check in and see how you're going. Oh, good to talk with you. Yeah, in fact, I'm just about wrapped up for Atlanta. I need your help, John, for Tennessee and Kentucky." Pause. Of course, the only thing I'm thinking about is Atlanta. Just about wrapped up for Atlanta. Just about wrapped up. You know what that is? Not wrapped up. That means if I could enter the race for Atlanta now, I'm entering at the finish line, which really shortens the process. Had I asked permission, "Oh my gosh, I have a great candidate," I could say, no. They wouldn't want those folks. So I didn't disrupt. I just hung up the phone, spent the next 2 hours pulling a superstar in Atlanta, called them back and told them what they needed to hear, which was, "Got my team working on Tennessee and Kentucky. We should have some pretty good ones for you soon. By the way, if you have not extended an offer yet for Atlanta, oh my gosh, I have someone that's 200% of their quota. They're over at your direct competitor. They could speak to you at 3:30. I'd love to talk with them. Love to talk with them. Not how much, not it's too late. I'd love to talk with them." Remove the barriers and things change. That was my shortest placement ever. It's a way of us staying on top of the conversation, being involved in the discussion, beginning to think about how all of these different components and pieces of information we put out about ourselves change the feel. Yeah, absolutely. Join the right groups and be involved in the right groups. Make sure you have enough groups, because every single group that you join, every single member is now in your searchable pool. If they were searching to hire someone like you, they can see you. If you were sharing some interesting content that could be valuable to them, it could land on their desktop simply because you share a group. Follow some important people. Look at that. I'm following Tony Robbins, mostly so I can get behind him right on stage and give him a little push, getting a little long in the tooth there. Now, we have to get to 500 plus connections to be seen as a mover and shaker, finger on the pulse. How are we going to do that? That also conveys, compared to the competitor, that you must have a Rolodex, you must have a contact list that just is second to none. So we're going to go to the unified search box, top of any page. We're going to do basic search, inside of quotations, invite me. And you get all these people that have invite me in their profiles, connect with every one of them. I run right down that list, as many tabs, doesn't matter. All invites accepted. I do it again. Run right down that list, because in their profile, they've got all invites accepted. I ask every single one of them. There's no deciding or parsing. I ask every single one of them. Go back and do it. Open networker, inside of quotes again. Open networker sounds a little strange, but lots more folks that want to connect with you because they're open networkers. And the last one doesn't really need the quotes. It's Lion, single word, Lion, stands for LinkedIn Open Networker. All high volume networkers. If you went through this list today, right after this lecture, invited every single one of those people from the different searches today, 4 days from now, was it Tuesday? By Friday, worst case Monday. I don't care if you're at 0 connections today. By Friday or Monday, you are at 501 and you're labeled 500 plus. This part of your concern over not looking substantial enough is really over. Take the first step wherever you are in your process and learn to repeat, 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 repeat. That's the whole point. Other thing I want to teach you today is really how to get to the decision maker. It's one thing to build out your LinkedIn profile as the full dimensional sales brochure, but then you need to go get that sales brochure in front of people. So how do we surround the job and really get to all the decision makers, which is not just the decider? So you have to think in terms of the boss's boss, and boss's boss's boss, maybe peers, subordinates, people that are around. So how do I find those people? I go back to my unified search box. Let's say the company I'm after is Informatica. I'm going to type in Informatica. When I type it in, I get this drop-down list. Don't click on the drop-down list. That is a trip down the rabbit hole. Don't do it. Simply click through, and suddenly I am here to see people, but as long as I'm here, I'm always brainstorming. What other companies under this name should I be considering that I haven't thought of? And I suddenly get 34,000 companies. Wow, that's a lot of Informaticas. A couple dozen Informaticas here. The rest are system integrators. They either install or resell Informatica software. If I'm right to work for Informatica, I'm statistically very likely to work for a number of these organizations on the list. If you didn't connect those dots, this is an alternate method to create statistically perfect lists. Almost every company you've worked with, one at a time, can go in that list and see what other companies, even though you may be scratching your head, what other companies might want to hire my skill set. But then we have to find real people. So we go back, click on the people tab, still on the free version, by the way. And what do I get? Oh, 2.5 million. Ugh, cold and in the ground. Before I get to that, I'm going to have to narrow down because it's problem solving. It's brainstorming. You know what? Give me the ones really in the US. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't need a 3-year ago employee. I need someone that's currently in the US and currently working for Informatica. And what do I get? 1,615 results. That's much better. But I can't look at 1,600 people either. I have to do a little more brainstorming, a little more thinking. Maybe it's a VP that's going to hire me. Maybe a VP. Look, it's just a simple VP. Really in the US, really currently working for Informatica. What do I get? 75 VPs, a lot of chiefs in that company. Let's see. You know what? Maybe it's a director. Director really in the US, really working for Informatica. What do I get? 228 directors. I'm going the wrong way. It's brainstorming. I'm supposed to fish around to find. I've discovered, you know what? It is a director, but it's a special type of director I'm after. It's a sales director I'm after. And now that I'm thinking about it, I need them all the way down right in New York City, even on the free version. And what do I get? 3. Suddenly I have 3. I'm always looking for 3 to 5 individuals at each organization. I'd like to approach 5 because my odds get better. If you only have the courage to approach one person, I hope you like your heart getting thrown against the rocks over and over. Because statistically, they're not likely to respond to you. But if you systematically go after 3 to 5 individuals without waiting at every single organization, 1, 2, or even up to 3 of those 5 people should be responding to you, or there's something that's gone wrong in your messaging itself. I'll help you with the messaging. Or maybe it's a sales VP. I'm thinking, well, I've only got 3. Then maybe there's a sales VP. Oh, look at that. There's 2 more. Exactly what I was after. Now I have 5. Connect with the ones that I can, and then suddenly I get frustrated with this darn InMail. I hope you understand what InMail is. We can't just use these things without understanding it. InMail is the literal definition of spam. It is paid email. I have well over 1,000 unopened messages in my LinkedIn inbox. Please do not send those things. If you're looking for a job, not going to help you. So I still want to connect with Nick, by the way. If I just loaded his profile, click the ... they've just hidden it behind the bush over here. Oh, there's the connect button. That can't really stop me. And I write this message one time ever, copy and paste it forevermore. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. Comment. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Says you don't know me, professionally appropriate, little stroke to the ego. Now you know exactly how to get all the way to every contact that you're after, everyone that you need to impress. Let's talk just a little bit as we begin to close for the day. I want to talk just a little bit about what I really see job search as. I think a lot of job seekers have this what I consider to be this false idea that job search is sitting on the internet looking for job postings. To me, that's absolute tragedy. It's tragedy because about 50% of all those job postings you see are not real in the first place. Those are advertising spots that are sold up to 1 year in advance. And they had no idea 6 months or up to a year ago what they were going to hire today. The only way you ever get a good deal on those job advertisements is to buy them all at once. I don't know what I'm going to hire next year or 6 months from now. And so they become a use them or lose them. They have to fill those spots with someone they may hire someday, which generally may or may not have relevance on today. Flip a coin. So to me, let's upend the entire idea of what job search is. Why don't we select the organizations or companies, 30 of them is the right number, the organizations or companies you're dying to work for, because it's a date. You have to be in love with those companies for the right reason, not because you see some open job. Devise the steps needed. That's as simple as working backwards, sun, moon, and stars. I mean, what John's saying is not possible, but if it was, how do I align the sun, the moon, the stars, working backwards to devise the steps? That's your job. Discover the decision makers. Of course, we told you and taught you exactly how to find the decision makers, reverse searching in LinkedIn. I'm sorry, what's their title? Decision makers. Their job is to object to you. You should become excited when they object. Well, you don't have this background. You know why I'm excited? Because they would not waste oxygen in the conversation. So they're going, maybe I have to ask you this. Then to ask you some tough, challenging question, an objection. It's your job to overcome those objections. Get a meeting, dazzle them. Either get or have them create that job for you. As we come to the end, today is all about creating a LinkedIn showplace for your career, really a three-dimensional sales brochure, all about you that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion. If you would like to consider working together to create a better LinkedIn profile or a better resume, of course, all my contact information is over on the website, SelfRecruiter.com, and packages and everything are over there. And if you need to talk before really selecting what is right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to chat. I'll be back on Thursday, that's 12 noon, with returning to the workforce after a long break or sabbatical. Next Tuesday at 5 p.m., I'll be doing my presentation guru. How is it that even if we're scared little mice, and by the way, I am shy and introverted, and this is what you see, how is it you can become the presentation guru that is in control, that's irresistible as you present for your job or for your career? Then I'll be back on Thursday, the 25th. That is a 12 noon lecture that is interviewing in a pandemic world and all the secrets for video interviewing. So great one to join in. Thank you guys for joining in today. I really appreciate it. These will be over on my YouTube channel, also be circulating on Facebook for a little bit, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Take care.